Audi A5 Sportback. I just don't get why you would buy a new one of these today. It's a good car, it's actually a really good car, but it's just blown out of the water by the modern competition from a Tesla. I just don't understand why you would choose this car. And let me explain why. So let's just show you a bit around this car first. So this is the current Audi A5, which has got that nice coupe shape, but this is the Sportback, so it is actually a four-door and has a bit of space for passengers in the rear as well. That's a reasonable sized boot. I think it's a very handsome car. I think it looks really sharp. Audi have really got their design language on point at the moment, I think, and it looks very nice. I really do like the look of it. On the inside, it's also just as good. Yeah. Is that leather? I think it might be leather. Anyway, on the inside here, let's ignore the fact that it could be leather. Maybe it's not. I won't accuse Audi just yet, and I haven't looked into the details, but on the inside, an Audi is a lovely place to be as well. It's just neat, tidy, feels really good, very solid build quality. Always now, their cars, doesn't matter if it's bottom of the range or top of the range, just feel like great cars to be in. Alcantara trims here, mixture of materials, a nice big screen but with some separate climate control, so that's nice and easy. So can't complain, very nice place to sit, reasonable trim level. We've got some cruise control on this one. I've got LED headlights, digital display there, and of course a digital display there. So it's not bad at all. But I would be interested, is this actually leather that they use now? We'll check into that. One thing I have noticed after just 2,500 miles in this car, there is already some wear on this driver's bolster here and some staining. I mean, it'll probably clean up, but for 2,500 miles, that doesn't look too good, and neither does this really, on this particular colour. In the rear, behind my seat position, it's okay. It feels quite dark and my head is on the ceiling here, but it's reasonably comfortable, if not totally spacious. There's this big console down the middle here, so in reality you'd have trouble getting a third person in here, but that's the same for most cars. So it's adequate, it's okay. Again, nice mixture of finishes and materials though. And this one, being the Sportback, does actually have a hatchback, and it gives a pretty good size load area for the boot. It lifts up and there's sort of a little bit of storage area under here, so it's not bad, and the seats do fold. To drive, well, again, as petrol cars go, it's pretty good. This one's got the 2-litre turbo, and I think it's a 7-speed auto gearbox. It all works pretty good. It's fairly nippy. The gearbox is pretty good. I came through town and a bit of country driving, and I averaged 27 odd miles per gallon. No doubt on a sort of long journey it could obviously do more than that, maybe 35, maybe even 40 miles per gallon. So it's okay. So as a combustion car goes, it's a pretty good car. Can't really fault it. It does everything quite well. It drives quite nicely. The ride is pretty firm, I have to say, on this particular S-Line example. So, you know, it's a good car. So what am I complaining about? Why wouldn't I buy one? Well, I just don't get it. The cars now available are like this. This is a Tesla Model 3. And they run in the same kind of size and the same kind of price bracket. This is over £40,000, this car, as you see it here and now. And it could certainly cost a lot more. The Model 3 Tesla, it's in the same ballpark, £40,000 up to £60,000 for the very top of the range version. But then you can also get used performance models for the same kind of money as this is new. So what would I choose? Well, let me show you around this Tesla and explain just some of the reasons why I do not understand why you would buy this car new today. So look and design perspective, well, it's always going to be down to opinion, but the Model 3 comes down lower at the front here. These wings are slightly higher, a bit more Porsche-like, I think. As we come down the side, I think it's got some equally nice lines. I think it's a very attractive and handsome car. This is a performance model with a slightly bigger wheel size compared to some of the others, but it's widely regarded as a pretty good looking car, I reckon. On the inside, it obviously changes completely. This particular car has the ultra white interior. This is a non-leather material. You can also have black seats, which is also non-leather, and they last very well, even this white. It's bright, it's airy, and it's very minimal. Everything is controlled from one single screen. And the reason for that is, well, it's simpler, there's less buttons to install, but it means the car can always do software updates, like your phone or iPad. So as new features, new functions come through, it's easier to update and add more functionality when you have one large simple screen like this. So this car will constantly evolve with you, basically. Add to that, the Model 3 has a full glass roof as standard, so it's just much brighter in here, even with the black interior. More practical storage as well, actually. Big center console with lots of storage. There's no gearbox in this car, so we've got all this space to play with in here. Cup holders, wireless phone chargers. It's a very different feel, much more minimal, but actually equally solid. Maybe some of the texture materials aren't quite as premium as you get to the Audi, but it's very nice. The windscreen's much lower. I've got a better view out the front. I can see the road right in front of me there. I think it just moves the game on loads. It would look weird to some people because it's so different to what you're used to, but actually it just works brilliantly. In the back of the Model 3, again, bright, airy, glass roof here gives me a bit more headroom. Probably a similar amount of knee room. My knees are maybe a tad higher off the seat base, but look at this, completely clear floor because we don't have any gearbox, transmissions, exhaust and all that stuff running underneath. In terms of seat width, it's similar, but there's more space in the back of this than there is in the Audi. Tesla Model 3 is only a saloon, I'm afraid. It would be nice to have this as a hatchback, so that is going to be a limitation for some. The new cars now do have a power tailgate. This is just an earlier car that doesn't. The boot space, once open, is similar in capacity to the Audi A5, I would say. It's pretty big, the seats do fold, and it actually has a larger storage area under the boot floor here. To drive, the Tesla Model 3, I think, blows it out of the water. This is where it really starts pulling trumps in terms of it's so much more reactive. Now, you can have a used performance for the same money as that, or even a new performance for the top end versions of that. But even the most basic Tesla standard range has by far more reactive and sharper dynamics than the A5. It doesn't have a great deal of steering feel, it's probably my criticism, but then the A5 doesn't either. Most new cars with electronic racks don't. But in terms of the responsiveness, it doesn't have to find a gear. Good go that gearbox is, when you put your foot down, it has to find the right gear, spool up the motor and get itself going. The Model 3 goes like a stab rat in comparison. It is so reactive, so sharp, but also winds back. It can be a relaxed, smooth driving car as well. It has a better ride than that A5 with its S-line suspension as well. And on the motorway, quieter, I would say, in the cabin. They're not too dissimilar, but it is generally a slightly quieter, a more refined, but a sharper car when you want it to be. And there's even a bit of storage in here, called the frunk. All these extra cameras the Tesla have, it's not just for autopilot, it actually uses them as dash cam as well. It can actually save the footage when you're driving if there's some kind of incident. Plus, they also work as cameras when you're away from the car. If somebody parks next to you and bangs into the vehicle, it will save footage from these cameras. And I don't see any of that on this Audi. The app on the Tesla is great. Not only can I see charge level, I can turn on my heating or air conditioning, start my heated seat, defrost the car, see where the car is. I can even unlock it remotely and let somebody else drive it remotely without them even having the keys. Now, I know app functionality is increasing on other cars, but this functionality with the Tesla app probably beats it. Now, the Audi may have adaptive cruise and they have a lane keeping system, but Tesla has autopilot. And autopilot really does have the capability to keep on going and do more. It does lane keep, it keeps the car in the middle of the lane, it radar cruises. It can even tell you that I want to change lane. I can even pull the car from a parking space when I'm not in the car, just using my phone. It can self-park. It just has more capability that is always being developed, and it can have more. Different packages do come at different costs, but even the basic Model 3 autopilot has a more autonomous system than the Audis. And electric seats are standard. And these white seats, even these white seats, hold up well, and you can see this is in far better condition than even that new Audi A5. And this car's done 106,000 miles. It hasn't really, it's done 100. No, it hasn't really. It's done 6,500 miles. But I've seen these cars with 50, 60,000 miles, and actually the seats do last really well. They're not leather, and that probably helps because they don't seem to stain anywhere near as easily. They always clean up really well. That seems to be the case with most Audis. Keyless entry even seems to be an optional extra. With a Tesla Model 3, your phone is the key. That's standard. You don't even have to get it out of your pocket. Just as you walk up to the car, it will unlock knowing your phone is there. you get in the car, push the brake, car starts. No need for any keys at all. So let me make it clear, I'm definitely not anti-Audi at all. Fit, finish, feel, their design, I love it all. In fact, I do drive an Audi e-tron at the moment, but that's the electric one, and I think it's a great car. Really interestingly, Audi have got some exciting cars in the pipeline with their e-tron lineup. There's a Q4 e-tron on its way. I know that's going to be good because we've already had and driven the VW ID4, which shares the same MEB platform. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the Q4 e-tron in the flesh. The e-tron GT, what a beast, an absolute monster, beautiful looking car. And then I've just seen the A6 e-tron unveiled as well. So exciting times. Well done Audi for bringing these really good looking, handsome cars into the foray of electric vehicles. And they're the ones I'm really looking forward to seeing and driving. So let's then talk about some of the financials. So this car, if you had it as a company-owned vehicle, you'd have to pay benefit in kind tax, and it'll cost a few quid. I'm not going to work it out, but you could easily spend a couple £100 a month on benefit in kind taxation. If you have a Tesla Model 3 or any other electric car, benefit in kind taxation in the UK currently is just 1%. It would cost you hardly anything to have this as a company-owned vehicle. Add to that, servicing. This will need servicing, oil changes, cabin filters, oil filters, gearbox flushes, brake pads. The Model 3, it has no service routine at all. It doesn't need servicing. You keep an eye on the tyres. Every now and then you can change the cabin filter yourself. There is no annual or biannual service requirement, and there is no oil to change on this car. So that saves a few quid as well. Brake pads, you'll never get through brake pads on a Tesla Model 3 or any other Tesla or any other electric car. The motors slow the car down, so using brake pads is infrequent and low usage, whereas obviously you would on the Audi. So financially there's a whole raft of reasons. And then let's talk about fuel costs as well. So of course you're going to have to put fuel in this car, and that means stopping at a petrol station on your journey on the way home, which could be a bit inconvenient. And I hear what you're saying. I know the next thing is, yeah, but I've got to stop and charge a Tesla. Well, normally you're just going to charge up at home or maybe at work, and therefore on a daily basis you don't even need to think about charging. It will always be charged up, and it can cost from zero. You may have solar panels, free electricity. Maybe you pay some electricity, but you get a cheap overnight tariff. And your Tesla, that could cost you under £5 to fill up, as it were. Whereas this, well, I haven't filled it up, it's probably £80 a shot. So big differences to be had, refueling from almost free. But what about the long journeys? I can hear you already. Yeah, but I want to drive 500 miles in one go. No, you can't. You really can't. I hear this all the time. You will need to stop after every couple of hours of driving and have a coffee, answer some messages on your phone. Surely you need to. I don't know of anybody that can't. Let's be honest here. Now, after 3 hours of driving one of these, yeah, you're going to need to stop and charge it for perhaps 40 minutes. Now, we've got other videos where we've shown what you can do. We've driven from Edinburgh to here on the south coast with one single stop in a Tesla Model 3. And you can't tell me you wouldn't need at least one stop even driving car. Now that stop didn't cost me anything in recharging costs, nothing, completely free, and you're definitely not going to get that on this either. So I'm not going to go on for ages. I can hear the comments and the keyboard warriors below tapping away in defense of the Audi. Let me will say the Audi is a great petrol car. It's just out of date, and that's my point. I don't get why you would buy one of these now. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a Tesla Model 3. There's loads of other electric cars out there now as well, but obviously they're similar price point and size comparisons in this scenario. So probably as good as a petrol car can get for this category, I'll admit that, and it's a nice looking car and nice to be in. But I think the Tesla trumps it in just about every way. And I just don't know why you would choose this instead of this. I think you can make up some reasons about it can do the traveling and stuff like that, but I don't think any of them are justifiable excuses. We have to make a change. We cannot keep buying cars like this. We know what's happening. We cannot deny the responsibility we have now to do our own bit to help with climate change. You cannot deny that. So people say, well, I want this because I want to drive non-stop for 6 hours. It's rubbish, you're lying. And let's say even in your day you need to stop for half an hour, 45 minutes to do a charge on a car. Surely that's a price worth paying, surely. Well, I think if you are in a showroom looking at one of these, you really need to think about that twice.